All right, let's talk college football. We do it every week. It's our college football weekend preview here on a Friday. Good games, as always, this week. We'll talk about 5 of them here on the show. And let's start with the big noon game, Indiana at Penn State. Look, Indiana, 14.5-point favorite. They're clearly better than they were last year, right? Last year it was kind of some cute story. And, people were kind of talking about, oh, here's Curt Cignetti, and he talks this big game, and he tells people to Google him and all this stuff. But then, they faced Ohio State. They were outmatched. They faced Notre Dame in the playoff. They were outmatched. Not the case here this year. They're ranked number 2, and rightfully so. They do everything right. They got a really good quarterback in Mendoza. They got skill guys on the outside. They can run the football. They defend. It's a top 5 defense. They're big in the trenches. They're tough. They're physical, and they don't make mistakes. And they're a really buttoned-up football team. Now, there's some people out there on ESPN. I saw this when the rankings came out, kind of suggesting that Indiana or Texas A&M should be ranked 1 over Ohio State. I understand they've played tougher games, right? They've had a tougher schedule maybe, but let's not kid ourselves here, right? Ohio State, not going to be talking about them this week. They play Purdue. Yeah, really good game there. But Ohio State clearly head and shoulders above everybody else here at this point. But Indiana, number 2. Better than last year. Some injuries might be a bit of a concern for them here at this point. They've got 2 players, 2 of their best players. Surratt, we've been talking about him all year. Their wide receiver, one of the best in the country. He left the Maryland game last week, hamstring injury. He's a little banged up. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on his potential availability for this game. And then Aiden Fisher, saw him get hurt in the UCLA game. He's a real stabilizer on their defense, a leader on their defense, and they're not the same without him. So Indiana has a few injuries here. That's another thing about Ohio State. They're all healthy here at this point. So those are 2 key injuries to keep your eye on here. But the thing about Indiana, man, is they don't just beat teams. They beat the tar out of teams, and they do it on a weekly basis, week in and week out. They go in there, whether they're home or on the road, and they beat the crap out of their opponent. And, in a lot of ways, they beat the crud out of Maryland last week, right? And Maryland's kind of funny. They kind of remind me a little bit of the Miami Dolphins over the past few years, where Maryland starts out so good in September, and you're like, oh, they might be all right. And then the season goes on, and you're like, oh, no, same old team. They're not very good, but no issues for Indiana against them at all in this game. But it is on the road, right? Penn State, Happy Valley, notoriously, a difficult place to play, no doubt about that. But Penn State obviously is not the Penn State that they expected to be, and certainly not the Penn State that we saw a month or so ago, right? They've had a lot of changes. No James Franklin, their quarterback, Drew Aller, he goes down, and they tried to do the whole, Ohio State and Michigan blueprint, right? We've seen it the past 2 national champions, where you get this old veteran team that's been around each other for a while, that can play offense, that can play defense, that can run the ball, that has a competent quarterback, that doesn't turn the ball over, and they all come back and try to go all in here on their final year. Michigan executed it great, national title. Ohio State executed it great, national title. Penn State tried to do it, and it was a complete disaster. Now, their quarterback, Grunkemeyer, just a kind of a nightmare situation that he finds himself in. A great opportunity. He's handled it okay for the most part. I want to bang on the kid here, but he went at Iowa, Kinnick Stadium, tough place to play. We'll talk about that in a second. At the Shoe against the best team in the country, and then at home against Indiana, the second best team in the country. So he hasn't really had many opportunities here, to be honest with you. Just a gauntlet for him. But if Penn State wants to be competitive in this game, they got to get back to running the football, right? Take it a lot off the shoulders of Grunkemeyer. They had success on the ground in the first half. Mind you, it was, a 3-point game going into halftime last week in the Shoe. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, that tandem there at that running back spot, they're really, really good. So if they can find a way to run the ball against Indiana, keep the ball out of Mendoza's hands a little bit, maybe they'll have a chance, but there's a reason it's a 14.5-point spread. Indiana, they don't play with their food. They go in there and they beat the crap out of people, and we'll revisit this game in a second for our best bets of the weekend. Also at noon, a big one in the Big 12. Lots of UC fans are going to have a close eye on that game. 7 BYU at 8 Texas Tech. We have them flipped in our power rankings, or our top 10 for college football here at this point, but I get it. BYU, undefeated team, got to show them some love here at this point. It is in Lubbock. Great environment there at Texas Tech. Joey McGuire, hats off to him. He's done a tremendous job. Head coach at Texas Tech. We talk about all the time these teams in the transfer portal NIL era where they go all in on a roster, spend a ton of money, and it's like, well, you can't just buy your guys and be really, really good. Well, Texas Tech is kind of defeating that narrative a little bit here because they're a really good football team. They have the one loss on the road against Arizona State. Didn't have Behren Morton playing. That was a Will Hammond game, who, by the way, now is out for the year. I believe Behren Morton is back, and that is critical for Texas Tech. A lot of good players in this game. Obviously, the story for BYU is their true freshman quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, and it's kind of interesting. Kind of reminds you of the Broncos in a little bit as far as how they rely on coming back in the fourth quarter to win. I'm not saying their defense is that good, but Bachmeier and the BYU offense oftentimes find themselves behind early on, first half, and they come roaring back and win the game at the end. It's not a formula that you can rely on to be consistent, right? But Bear Bachmeier, he deserves a ton of credit, and he's putting in kind of a historical season. Really, as far as true freshman quarterbacks go, he hasn't lost a game, right? He's 8-0 as a true freshman. Last time we seen that was Trevor Lawrence, right? Now, obviously, he's not a Trevor Lawrence-type talent, but Trevor Lawrence, the year he had at Clemson, he comes in, replaces Kelly Bryant at the time. They go on and win the national title and really dominate Alabama there in that game. So pretty historic stuff what Bear Bachmeier's been able to do. And I was thinking of this. I've always been like, who is he? Reminds me of somebody out there. And Joel Klatt, so shout out Joel Klatt, Fox Sports said it on his podcast, Max Duggan. He's Max Duggan at TCU, what Bear Bachmeier does here at this point. Tough, physical, gritty. It's not always going to look pretty, right? But he has the confidence of his teammates. They rally around him. And, I think that's a perfect comp there from Joel Klatt. Max Duggan, in a lot of ways, Bear Bachmeier reminds you of him. David Bailey is going to play a huge role in this game for Texas Tech. He leads the country in sacks. If you haven't heard of him, you watch the game, you will hear of him at noon on Saturday. And Jacob Rodriguez there at that linebacker spot. There's a lot of people out there that view he could be a potential guy that wins the Buckus Award. Unfortunately for him, Arvell Reese also plays linebacker for Ohio State, so probably unlikely he gets that award. But Jacob Rodriguez, really good player there at that linebacker spot. Joey McGuire, man, his defense, they got some dudes. They can run the football as well, take the load off the shoulders of Behren Morton, their quarterback. They got two sophomores there in the backfield, Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams. They do a great job of running the football. And an injury note here for the Cougars, Jack Kelly, who is their sack leader and one of their leaders of their defense. He's banged up, and his status for this game is up in the air. Texas Tech, 10-point favorites at home in Lubbock against BYU. UC, obviously, it's a bye week for the Cats. They're going to have a close eye on that football game, and we will revisit this a little bit as well in a matter of moments for our best bets of the weekend. Oregon and Iowa. This is my favorite game of the weekend. I think it's going to be tremendous. We said this early in the week, keep an eye on Iowa in this spot, potentially pulling an upset. Now, as the week goes on, you see some more people nationally that are kind of saying the same thing. Kirk Herbstreit went on the McAfee show, I believe, yesterday, and he was like, I was going to win this game. I was going to win this game. And I think it's going to be close. I don't know if necessarily they're going to win, but this is going to be a great college football game. And, some people, the AP poll is kind of disrespecting Iowa a little bit. Kirk Ferentz, he's been there since 99 as their head coach, and he's 70 years of age right now. And look, they don't play the most exciting brand of football. They don't throw it around the field. It's kind of very much defense, special teams, run the football, hard-nosed, tough, physical, right? And it obviously hasn't led to them winning Big Ten championships or winning at a super high level, but they win games. There's a reason Kirk Ferentz has been in place as the head man at Iowa for so long. And look, it's a dangerous spot for Oregon. Kinnick Stadium, I'm telling you, Iowa, 3:30. The weather is something to keep an eye on in this game. Rain, it's cold rain as well. They're saying maybe even a little bit sleet second half. This is an Iowa team that they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball throughout the entirety of the football game. Gronowski, their quarterback, he's really good. He didn't throw the ball much, but he's really good running the football, and that's going to be the key for Oregon. If they can stop the run, they'll win. But I don't know if necessarily that's going to happen. Also, if they win the turnover battle, they're going to win. But Iowa is a team that forces a lot of turnovers. They fly around. They make plays. I bet they're going to – if Oregon wins the turnover battle, they win, as I said. But if Iowa can create some turnovers, flip the field a little bit, right? Make a special teams play or two. They do that a lot as well, do the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I'm really interested to see how this game goes. Iowa feasts on turnovers. They absolutely do. Weather factor. Both good defenses, right? I was kind of surprised that Oregon was at 9. They put the two Big 12 teams above Oregon. If Oregon was playing Texas Tech, who would be favored? I mean, come on, let's not kid ourselves here. So we were a little bit higher on Oregon in our rankings. But certainly a game to keep an eye on. 3:30 should be really good here. And Oregon can run the football there as well. They got Jordan Davison and Noah Whittingham. So it feels like, not very many possessions here in this game. Feels like it'll be kind of a relatively quick game, clock running oftentimes. And, good zone defense there for Ferentz, and we'll see how Dante Moore can navigate that, right? People view Dante Moore as a first-round type of quarterback. I think there's some people that say he'll definitely come back to school. That'll be something that's certainly interesting to monitor. But it's a good Iowa defense. They play a lot of zone coverage. The weather's going to be crappy. You want to be an NFL first-round pick, you got to be able to throw the ball in crappy weather, and we'll see if Dante Moore can do that. But, he was kind of a Heisman guy for a while, and it's kind of fallen off that after the loss to Indiana. Didn't play great in that game, and then he kind of messed around with Wisconsin also in bad weather in that game there as well. But, I think Dante Moore, if he goes off in this game, he kind of reinserts himself back into the Heisman conversation. It's my favorite game of the weekend. I absolutely love it. 6.5 points in favor of the Oregon Ducks. We'll revisit this game as well for our best bets of the weekend. Two more here to conclude our college football weekend preview. A&M and Missouri. A&M's unbeaten. They're coming off a bye. Again, the people at ESPN are like, oh, they might be the best team. They're good. They're really good. They play offense. They play defense. Unfortunately, not better than Ohio State's. But Missouri, you talk about on the road in the SEC, and it can be very daunting. I don't know if Missouri really classifies like that. Certainly more daunting than going to Kroger Field in Kentucky, right? But it's not some crazy environment there. They got a lot of construction going on in one of the end zones, which is kind of the optics of that obviously aren't great. But A&M coming off a bye, they're a complete team, right? They can run it. They can throw it. They can defend. Elko, coach him with a lot of confidence. His players are playing free with a lot of confidence there as well. They got in that shootout against Arkansas, which was kind of weird. But Bobby Petrino, say what you want about him, but he knows offensive football. And he had the Arkansas offense humming in that game. So I have some questions a little bit there with the A&M defense. But the key here is Bo Pribula is out. Right, he got hurt in the Vandy game for Missouri, so they got a true freshman quarterback in the game. Matt Zollers will be under center, and we'll see. Welcome to college football. Here's Texas A&M. Best of luck to you, essentially. But the key for Missouri, if they want to hang in there in this game, they got to get back to run the football, right? Early in the year, we were sitting here saying Ahmad Hardy, best back in the country, going to be an NFL guy. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's got to get back to that early season form. If Missouri is going to have a chance in this game, they got to run it early. They got to run it often. I'm a big believer in Ahmad Hardy, but they got to give him the rock, and he's got to tote that thing in order for Missouri to hang in there, stay in this game. Cassius Howe is a guy to keep your eye on always when A&M's playing. Rushing the passer, he's an NFL guy. Keep your eye on him. But kind of to go with that Ahmad Hardy point, the Aggies, believe it or not, are a bottom 10 team in the country when it comes to yards per carry allowed. So this is a team you can run on a little bit. Notre Dame had some success run the football on them earlier in the year. Ahmad Hardy, you would think that's a good matchup for Missouri, and we'll see how that goes. But if I'm Mike Elko here, I'm loading the box, right? True freshman quarterback, Zollers, and you've got some guys that can defend on the outside. If you're Texas A&M, I'm loading the box and saying, throw the football, beat us with your freshman quarterback and see what he has. And that will be an interesting matchup to watch in this game. And the Aggies have been the best road team in the country. And there are 3 road games. They've scored more than 40 or more points in all those games. We'll see if that continues against Missouri. Definitely upset alert, right? I think I'm not going to say there's fraudulent tendencies to, Texas A&M, but I don't view them on the same level as Ohio State and Indiana and even Alabama, to be completely honest with you. I don't think they're quite there yet. If they go to Missouri, Columbia, handle business on the road, maybe I'll change on that, but I still need see a little bit more from them from a run defense perspective. And, Marcel Reed throwing the football. He's got 2 really good receivers in Craver and Concepcion. Obviously, we know what he can do with his own read stuff, using his legs, run the football. He's throwing the ball well from within the pocket, but I need to see more of it, and ultimately I need to see their defense step up a little bit and stop the run here. Finally, LSU and Alabama. Usually this is a banger each and every year going into the year. You certainly thought it was going to be a banger, but LSU is unranked, and they fired their head coach in Brian Kelly. So both these teams coming off a bye. Alabama always bye week before LSU, and it was very interesting watching this Tiger team early, because you kind of thought that Nussmeier was supposed to be some top guy, Heisman candidate coming in the year. I was drinking the Garrett Nussmeier Kool-Aid, hand up accountability there. He's been banged up throughout much of the year, playing through a lot of injuries, so I think that should be taken into account, certainly. But Whit Weeks, one of the best linebackers in the country, he went out a couple of weeks ago, and that defense doesn't even resemble how they looked early in the year. Whit Weeks is a tremendous player. His status, by the way, for this game against Alabama is questionable. I'm sure he's doing everything in his power to try to be available for this game. But from a defensive perspective, the LSU Tigers have really stunk over the past few weeks, and their offense isn't clicking. Their coach is fired. So it's a complete mess. It's hard for me to sit here and believe that they're going to get this thing turned around. Again, it's not even in Death Valley. They got to go to Titletown, play in Tuscaloosa. But this game, man, everything goes out the window. LSU, Alabama, it's not the same as, Ohio State, Michigan, or Alabama, Auburn even. But LSU, Alabama, a lot goes out the window. This is their natty, right? LSU thought they were going to be competing for an actual national championship this year, but this is their national title here on the road against Alabama. And, the Tide better be ready for this game. They better show up, be ready for the game. And, Ty Simpson, I've said this point several times on the show. Alabama, it is an elite team when Ty Simpson is playing elite football. When Ty Simpson is not playing elite football, even if he's just playing good football, Alabama is very, very vulnerable because they have a lot of holes. Credit to Kalen DeBoer and their staff, even Kane Walmack there defensively. They've cleaned up some of their issues, but they are very much reliant on 15 being very, very special. And if he's not in this game against LSU, that can open up some potential opportunities for the Tigers to possibly hang around late in this ball game. LSU has to blitz them. Right? And when you sit there and you have an elite quarterback, which I believe Ty Simpson is, and you sit there and say you got to blitz him, usually that's a recipe for disaster if you're the defense, right? I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but you think about these elite quarterbacks. You blitz Tom Brady, that's a death sentence. You blitz Joe Burrow, that's a death sentence. So I think they have to do that, but if they don't get home, look out, because Ty Simpson's going to continue to rack up points as he's the trigger man on the best passing offense, passing attack in college football.